Going on? So today we're going to be solving question number 11, and this is from the SAT number 17. This is the April 2019 test. And the question reads, a central idea discussed in the passage is that. So this is the first question that is sort of out of the gate here. If you want a little more clarity, a little more info about the passage overall, and sort of a breakdown, you can watch my other video I did on the passage outline. And if you're ready, let's jump into this question. So this is sort of the big picture question. It usually comes right after the passage. It's asking about the central idea discussed in the passage. And there's a couple places to look for this. So normally what I'll do is I'll sort of scroll back up to the beginning of the passage and try to look for some kind of, basically go back to the beginning, and I'm looking for a thesis statement, usually in the introduction or somewhere near the introduction. I'll also look at this little blurb here for sort of the central claim. However, what I see first, right? Basically, try to answer the question before you look at the answer choices. However, what I notice here in these answer choices is that a lot of what is being discussed are sort of what could be the findings of the experiment. So if we remember this passage, the whole passage is basically looking at these two experiments that Fernbach, the scientist, did, and he looks at these two experiments, and it really focuses on one particular. And all of these, right, articulating the reasons for holding an opinion can cause people to decide, etc. The process of describing an issue, most people are not truly interested. All of these sort of discuss what I see to be as the finding of that experiment. So what goes through my mind is, let me just try to figure out basically, or try to remember what the finding of the experiment is that Fernbach came to, and then match the answer choice that will come to that. So I can pretty much do this by memory. So Fernbach, if we remember, he did the experiment, in the first experiment, and the experiment was basically he asked people to give detailed explanations of their beliefs or of their positions, and not to try to justify them, but just to sort of explain the policy in detail. His hypothesis was that people who were really extreme or even had strong conviction about their beliefs, as they went through and explained the policy in detail, they would realize, like, damn, I don't really even know anything about this policy. That's going to shake their conviction, and then they're going to be less confident or even less overconfident in their opinion on these issues. And that's exactly what he found. So if we look for an answer choice that will match that, we can look at A, which says articulating the reasons for holding an opinion can cause people to decide that they are wrong. So this sort of has the right dynamic, right? Articulating the reasons for holding an opinion and sort of coming towards more negative opinion of your previous beliefs. That has the right dynamic. So let's keep it. There's a couple things that are wrong with it that you might see off the bat, but we'll look at it more in depth in a moment. B says the process of describing an issue in detail can make people more moderate in their views about the issue. So I think this is pretty good as well. It's basically describing that as you explain or describe a policy or an issue, it's going to change your beliefs and basically bring you back from being extreme, so making you more moderate. It's a good choice. C says that most people are not truly interested in understanding complex ideas. Not really anything that the passage mentions. Definitely not a finding of the experiment that Fernbach does. So for that reason, I think we can get rid of C. D says that people are likely to understate their most passionately held positions to avoid offending others. Again, maybe this is plausible, but not anything that the passage talks about. Basically how people are trying to not be too strong in their beliefs because they don't want to offend their family members or their loved ones or their friends or whatever. So because the passage doesn't talk about that, and especially Fernbach's experiment doesn't really discuss that, we can get rid of D. So that's going to leave us with answer choice A or B. And again, like I said, they both have this dynamic of explaining your reasoning or explaining a policy is going to lead you towards softening your position. Let's see if we can figure out what's wrong with one of these. So A again says articulating the reasons for holding an opinion. So the first thing is that the first experiment that he does is he basically asks people to explain the policy in depth and not to justify it, right? Not to give their reasons for holding an opinion, but instead to just simply explain the policy. And that comes right here. They were not asked for value judgments about the policy or basically their opinions about it, but simply a highly detailed description of the mechanics of the policy in action, right? This is the thing that caused them to soften their opinions when they were actually required to just list their reasons, which is here, merely listing reasons for liking a policy, right? That would sort of match reasons for believing it. What happened was that they were less shaken in their views. So that's the first error that I think for A, is that it's not articulating the reasons for holding an opinion. It's more so describing the mechanics of the policy that's going to soften the position. The second part here says that this can cause people to decide that they are wrong, which is a very strong and specific claim, which we would need evidence for, and that's not really what the passage says. The passage doesn't really say that people now all of a sudden realize miraculously that they were wrong. All it means is that they have less conviction and less confidence in their opinions and beliefs. B, however, says the process of describing an issue in detail, right? This is better because we're not justifying our position, we're just describing it in detail. This can make people more moderate in their views, and this is good too, because that's what the passage says, that people become more moderate, not that they think that they're wrong, but just they become more tempered in their understanding. And if we go back to the passage, we can find a nice text to support this, which is basically that here, that's what happened. Trying and failing to explain complex policies undermined the extremist illusions about being well informed. They became more moderate in their views as a result. So that pretty much perfectly matches this answer choice here. So we'll choose answer choice B as our correct answer for question number 11.